So you have a background in evolutionary biology. I'm assuming you know a good bit about evolutionary psych as well. Is that
hmm
right?
hmm
So help me conceptualize I can understand a certain degree of like a Trump narcissism. Even if you don't like it, you say from an evolutionary perspective, that type of mentality probably led to increased odds of survival, maybe increased, reproduction, had more kids to survive. The progressive mentality seems to be the opposite of what you would expect from, an evolutionary mindset. It's almost like they're trying to push a self-destruct button on society. You have things, I mean, an extreme version would be like, in the trans thing, if you're making yourself infertile, that's the opposite of what evolution would want you to do, having more kids. So it seems so much of this is the opposite of the direction that evolution would want us to go, so to speak.
Well, it's certainly something to think about. I mean, I haven't really gotten into whether or not it's really dysgenic in the sense that you're talking about. But one of the things you brought up is that, one of the key features of, left-wing radical progressive organizations and groups is that they self-immolate. They just get into a state where they eventually end up in an interpersonal conflagration themselves, and they can never achieve any outcomes because they end up just infighting and breaking down, and there's no structure. They can't accept any hierarchy or order, and so they just end up engaging in basically group petulance because there's no structure to the group. There's no orientation or hierarchy that can establish a command structure to have any coherent group organizational capacity. So they certainly do self-immolate as groups and as orientations and as an ideology. It ends up just being complete, basically a borderline breakdown, an affect storm, as Kernberg would say. But as far as whether or not reproductive fitness is involved, I would be hesitant to take that bridge too far right now. With the trans movement, it's still at the population level, even though we've seen this rapid uptick in, the social contagion and road, it's still relatively minor. And even when you consider the amount of people that are having these surgeries, it's still a small proportion of the total population. So certainly the mental aspect of it is dysgenic, though. The idea that, that you would alter your body in ways that make it less likely to be able to successfully reproduce. If that were produced at scale, then yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So on the topic of evolution, when I was growing up, it was pretty much 100% conservative Christians that were opposed to the idea of evolution. And more recently, I've seen a lot of progressives, particularly from the postmodern school of thought, who are, having negative reactions towards, especially evolutionary psychology. Have you seen that?
The reason that the left has issues with evolutionary psychology is because it's biologically ingrained and it has the feature that it's biologically deterministic. So, disparities are a result of biology, not the environment, not the social system. And so if you're dedicated to social justice and you think that the environment and society in particular and systemic racism and all these other ills contribute to the disparities, you're not going to like a theory that says just the opposite, basically, that the bulk of the reason there's disparities is because of genetically mediated, biologically mediated differences that are determined by evolution of biology.